But don't you think Marxist-Leninists are the lesser evil compared to the right? Let me put it this way: I don't fundamentally trust people who borrowed their ideology from Stalin. Like, I don't trust that. I trust Marxism. I trust communism. I trust Karl Marx's labor theory of value. I just don't think that the ideology concocted by Joseph Stalin to justify his authoritarian regime is good. And I don't think it's a good basis for what a leftist future or vision should be. Because I think any kind of society that values workers owning, the means of production, the core component of, Marxism, must also value democratic rule. Like if you are trying to do an authoritarianism, you aren't going to be in favor of workers actually owning their own their own workplaces. What you wind up doing is just having the state own the workplaces, and the state owning the workplace is not at all the same thing. You've just replaced the boss with a larger mechanism. So like I'm not interested in trading one authoritarian for another. And again, if you remember what I said was, if these Marxist Leninist orgs want to like have people turn out to do Tesla takedown protests, or go to indivisible organizational rallies, or do things that are productive, they should do it. I'm just not terribly interested in writing a treaty with a group of Marxist Leninists and inviting them into my community and like putting my seal of approval on them. I feel like it's not that difficult to understand. I'm anti-authoritarian in practically all cases. Hello, Story Girl. I hope you're doing well as well. Anyway, hope that clears up that question. Beep boop. Yeah, I've just never ever understood the idea that like, oh man, we really believe in workers democratically owning the capital. But, we won't trust workers to democratically operate their country. That seems insane. Like, it seems like an insanely hypocritical ideological position to take. Yeah, exactly. Like, the entire premise of communism is democratic at heart. And yeah, like, workers in a democracy could vote to organize the economy. But like, when you make a dictator in charge of that, like, it precludes the ability to organize. Exactly. Like, I don't know. I believe in the long arc of history that we're going to come up with socialism. We're going to move forward with it because of its inherent superiority to capitalism in a number of different ways. And I think once we hit upon that, we move forward, we protect it, we nurture it, and over time, the need for the state and the need for the commodity form may erode. But that could be something that's like 1,000 years in the future. Like we'll see. We'll see. But I'm a realist. I'm not terribly interested in arguing like, oh man, communism versus socialism versus whatever. Like I want to talk about actual tangible steps to make things better. My worldview just kind of generally aligns with socialism as a concept. I fundamentally disagree that worker ownership is socialist. If you don't get rid of the profit motive, it's just capitalism with co-ops. It's worker-owned capitalism in my view. Yeah, but I think that's an improvement over what we have. I like understand that when we're talking about like getting rid of markets as a concept, that's a long-term goal. That is like very long-term. So like one of the things I would argue is that worker ownership of the means of production is the primary thing about socialism. Like profit motive is not the primary thing about socialism. It worker ownership is. It is who controls the capital, who organizes that capital, who implements that capital. And so fundamentally that is at the heart of what socialism is. And I think that over time, if you allow and nurture that system, there can be changes done via the aggregate worker in a democracy to bring about like the erosion of, like I was saying, the state and also markets, or like at the very least the commodity form, which my argument is that even if you got rid of the commodity form, there would still be markets in some sense. But like, I think once we start going down that conversation rabbit hole, like it gets a very speculative in a way that I don't find particularly useful for our modern era. Let's see. Jimmy Hennessy in Twitch chat writes, I'm a humanist communist, but because of my pacifism, makes me want to try reform. So democratic socialism through a completely co-op economy. Then we plan a complete humanist communist structure, abolish everything, and extremely quickly establish the new system to reduce harm significantly. My issue is that like, I think that the first step is good, like democratic socialism through a co-op economy. Excellent first step. The issue though is that we're talking about globally. Like it can't be a step that is taken simply by like one country. Like it has to be done in a broader global sense. Like the economic system of a co-op economy needs to propagate through the world and to become the new norm in order that like we can start looking at other ways. I don't think that there is a way to quickly establish a new system to reduce harm. Like I just don't think that there's a way to do that. I think instead what you need is a gradual evolution of the concept. Yeah, like when we look at the broad sweep of history, like a revolution can topple a dictator. I don't know that a revolution is particularly successful at establishing a broad new economic model that abolishes everything. Like, I don't think, much like how Project 2025, even with years of planning and billions of dollars backing it, couldn't simply just walk into the US government, unplug everything, and plug in its new fascist agenda. Similarly, you can't just do that to a country of like 300 million people plus when it comes to like better improvements on that society, you know? My whole thing is just that I believe in evolutionary socialism. I believe in fighting for the democratic mechanisms that allow us to take steps forward towards that goal, and that eventually, as we achieve that goal, it makes it harder and harder for that consolidation of wealth to take place. That leads to like someone with $400 billion controlling a single nation, and so that would just be my general goal. A socialist country where capital is broadly owned via democratic co-ops, and where there's a strong enough social safety net that we have abolished homelessness, hunger, health. No one's dying because they're not covered by healthcare. I think that these are meaningfully large enough steps that like I am not suffering from shonen protagonist anime syndrome like enough to think that we're gonna see all of that in my lifetime. You know, I think when we're talking about like the erosion of the need for a state in a globalized world, we're talking about something that is going to take hundreds, if not thousands, of years. And I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's something that takes time. Like the idea of something that has existed for, you know, millennia simply not existing anymore, that I think that is something that similarly takes time to die out. Have you considered that you might actually be the main character? No, don't be ridiculous. I think that's just liberal brain poisoning, limiting what you perceive the realm of the possible to be. I mean, I don't think so. When I say like the idea of the state, we've literally had ideas of the state for like the last 12,000 years. At minimum. I mean, we can probably go back farther than that, like ideas of like city states and such. So what I'm trying to say is that the idea of capitalism has been around for like 400 years. I think we can dismantle that one. I think we are capable of doing that. I think similarly, we are capable of envisioning a world where, no one goes hungry, no one is homeless, no one suffers from a lack of health care. But also, I think it takes longer to unlearn certain ideas. Maybe a better way to think about this is in terms of patriarchy. The idea that women deserve rights is, at least in America, like didn't come into its own until like, I don't know, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, maybe. And then that began like the legislative push. But like when we're talking about the idea of patriarchy and patriarchal thought not holding sway over society anymore, we're talking about something that has literally been ingrained for possibly 30,000 years or more. You can read Graeber's History of Debt. He actually gives a really good talk, if you don't want to read the book, but he gives a really good talk about it as well, where he traces kind of the history of ownership and private property and capitalism through the evolving ideas of, dowry, like selling your daughter and like protecting kind of bloodlines and such. It's a really great book and a really great talk as well. But like kind of what I'm trying to get at here is like, this is now an idea that hasn't been around for 400 years. This is now an idea that's been around for 30,000 years. That is deeply embedded in everything from like the language we have to the cultural traditions we have to like every different level of how we relate to the world. And I'm not saying it's impossible to defeat. I'm just suggesting that like unlearning that is a long process. And part of what I'm trying to get at here is that I speak right now from a place of not ever, even if I dedicated my life like just in solitude to trying to unlearn patriarchal ideas that have been instilled in me, I would not be able to free my own mind of it, let alone a future, like the next generation, you know? And so I guess my argument here is that there are some things that are embedded in our society and embedded in our minds and embedded in our language that take time to unlearn. So, like that's my whole argument. My whole argument is that the idea of a society continuing to exist without a state, that's going to be something that takes a long time to learn and a long time for people to just generally trust in kind of a socialist world. Similarly to people unlearning the idea of patriarchy. And so like all I'm saying is that like it took hundreds and hundreds of years of people suggesting in a myriad uncountable small ways that in fact people did not need a king in order to live. And then it culminated in action. And it turns out we don't need a king in order to live. That's great. But that is the result of hundreds of years of people discussing it, if not 1,000 more years of people discussing it. So all I'm saying is that things take time. The arc of history is broad, and we live for like a blink of it, you know? Question, is Trump an ANCAP? No. Trump is just a capitalist. I don't think he cares about anarchy. I think he just cares about accumulation. Yeah, I think I'm not entirely against Lenin's ideas per se, but what we call Marxist-Leninism is Stalin's idea. It's Stalin's bastardization of what Lenin wrote and what Marx wrote into something that is wholly
Nobody knows how this
antithetical
will
to
go
both.
because we don't know how bad climate change will shake things up ultimately. Maybe
True.
Bronze Age collapse style, who knows?
True. True, Von Tux. True. How would anarcho-capitalism work? That's the secret. It wouldn't. That's the secret here. Would you be okay with a mix between worker-owned businesses and nationalized businesses? Yes, though I think at the end of the day, I would want a transition for those nationalized businesses to be, in some sense, worker-owned as well. How would an ANCAP work during its initial few years, though? I mean, it would simply loot the pre-existing government, live off that for a while, and then it would be like full Mad Max Thunderdome. Like it would just be cuckoo bananas. It's not a functional society. In the best case, you're like recreating Immortan Joe's society from Mad Max Fury Road. Like that's best case scenario for anarcho-capitalism. Guy finds a way to monopolize a thing that people need in order to live, like water, for example, and then like just becomes the God King. That's how that works. you know? Hey.
Great societies are built by those who plant trees whose shade they'll never sit in. We won't see it happen, but we live knowing we're planting seeds.
Exactly, Charlotte. Exactly. You get it. Trees take time to grow, to take root, you know? Some of the largest organisms still currently living on Earth are colonial tree colonies, and those have taken thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years to build, and they all spread from, just a handful of plantings. We do work so that our children and our grandchildren might play beneath the boughs. The text isn't showing up for YouTube super chats. It's not showing up on my screen either. I can't fix it right now. I burned my life to bring about a sunrise I know I'll never see. Exactly, Anodyne Quinine. So yeah, it's a long struggle, Like I don't know what to say. Like, people who lived in company towns and fought the Pinkertons, like they weren't expecting like the world to change around them and for like America to fall. They were just trying to better their corner of the world and like gain some rights and dignity. And I think similarly, most struggle in the world revolves around that. It's the small fight that you can actually fight, It's sad though, the tale of building a society you'll never see. Is it sad? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's the best of us, really. The idea of humans living for an idea and a concept of betterment larger than ourselves. Like, I think that's beautiful, actually. Like, I think people acting out of a place of radical love for their children or their neighbors' children, I think that's some of the best we have. Like, if I looked at humanity as a whole and I was a space alien, like, that would be the thing that would ennoble us. For as petty and as violent and as quick and short as we are, like, I think that's beautiful. Will you cover the election in Canada at all over the next month? I will do my best, but honestly, LB, like, every single day I wake up and I look at all of the news in America and I'm just like, this is some shit. And then I have time to cover exactly like 3 things. you know? That idea gives religion vibes though. I don't give a shit about vibes. Like, I'm sorry, the idea that like my children or your children are a religion is silly. That's silliness. The idea that building a better world for your children is religion, that no.
What I worry about is the rise of fascist governments as climate migration ramps up. If we don't beat ethno-nationalism now, that's where we're headed.
Alexis Vandam, that is actually what spurred me to start streaming in the first place about politics. Yeah, eco-fascism is a very real threat. Very, very real. And I'm really worried about if we don't beat back this Trump administration in America, like, it is going to be it's going to be bad. It's going to be I mean, it's going to radicalize people to the far right in even greater numbers. We need to have programs in place to house and feed everyone universally, and then actually follow through and do so to the people who come to our shores. Pew. All right. You guys ready for like the next segment we were gonna do? Because like that wasn't even a segment. That was just I like talking about my socialist views. Beep boop. Socialists are roused. I've never seen socialists so aroused before. Just pisses me off that I won't get to see it. Man, more of you guys need to like plant flowers or something in like a little window pot. You know? Like I don't know. It is satisfying to plant. To sow and reap. To understand the flow of time and the nature of seasons. You know, get some dirt under your nails, because like I think genuinely just a little potted plant can maybe instill in you like a little bit of an idea of like, hey, sure, it might suck to not see a flower in full bloom, but it still feels pretty damn good planting one that you know will bloom someday. I'm a black thumb. Okay, but have you considered growing sunchokes though? Have you considered growing sunchokes though? They're really easy. You just get a couple tubers and you're basically good to go forever. Also, I'm gonna totally not like an actual segment. I just really like I just really like this new channel I found. So this is just my little. Oh my god! Sorry. What a minute. Oh god. Sorry. Sometimes I get recommended videos for TYT and they're just really bad. What was it? Going to find this. Found it. Okay, so I just like gardening. I like plants. I like planning potentially like a future garden if I ever have like a land upon which I can till, and I stumbled across this delightful man who makes these like videos about growing things, and the channel is called Grow Veg, I believe. Yeah, Grow Veg. Has almost 1 million subscribers. Good stuff. And man, this guy's just a delight. Look at this guy.
Everyone loves potatoes, but did you know there's a vegetable that's even easier to grow, tastes delicious, and needs almost no care? This is the Jerusalem artichoke or sunchoke, and it's an all-round garden star, as we're about to find out. Let me show you. And here we are, my artichoke patch. Now it doesn't look like much, does it? But believe me, under here are untold riches.
Like I just like him. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy who wants to teach you how to grow stuff. Is the dog included? You can get a dog.
Planted last year, and I've been saving them till this very moment to dig them up. Shall we?
Look at how enthusiastic he is.
There are many reasons to grow Jerusalem artichokes, and this right here is one of them. Jerusalem artichokes are one of the most prolific vegetables you can grow, and they're one of the easiest, because unlike, say, potatoes, the tubers can stay in here all winter to lift up as they are needed at your convenience. no special storage required. This is one of the joys of this hardy plant. Not only is it super hardy, good in zones sort of 3 all the way up to zone 9, it's pretty much bomb-proof, suffering very few diseases like blight and hardly any pest attacks from the likes of, say, potato beetle. Plant it towards the end of winter and watch it romp away. Now,
so anyway, I just thought it was really cool. You know, like, hey, do you want something that's like a potato, but like kind of different and cool, and like for whatever reason isn't widely sold in America because it's treated like a weed? And like, yeah, I do want that, actually. I do want a tasty thing to try in my mouth and to cook with. Let's see here. He in that one plot that you see him like uncovering there, he grew 20 pounds of tubers. And I was just like, oh my god. Oh my god. But yeah, look at these little guys.
year after year with the merest effort from you. Now this little lot grew in a slightly shaded spot surrounded by shrubbery. If you grow them in full sun, well, you can expect even more tubers. I'm actually going to move my Jerusalem artichoke bed to a new area because last year I found they just grew so tall that they actually flopped over and got in the way of surrounding.
Let's see if we can find a really good picture of like the flowers here. They have like these really dandy yellow flowers. I like this part of the video where he talks about like how they got their name.
Plants. Now it's no wonder this is often touted as the one crop you need to grow in case of the apocalypse. I can see why. Jerusalem artichokes aren't actually from Jerusalem.
What's this guy's name?
And actually bear no resemblance
veg.
or relation to globe artichokes either, which are in fact a type of thistle. These guys are in fact more closely related to sunflowers. And when you consider their lofty habit and cheery yellow flowers, you can...
Yeah, look at that. Look at how jaunty they are. I'm a sucker for like an edible plant that has a jaunty flower. Have you guys ever seen potato flowers, by the way? Look at this. Look at how fucking cute potato flowers are. Look at that. That's adorable. Have you ever heard the idea of the noble savage? Yes, I have heard that trope. And yes, it is in fact very racist to view non-Western, non-white cultures as like inherently like more in tune with nature or some shit. So that's what I'm supposed to be seeing. Why won't my potatoes bloom? It's adorable. They're adorable. I don't know. Anyway.
Really see why. And that's probably where they get their alternative name of sunchokes from. These guys can grow really, really tall, sort of 10 foot or 3 meters plus. And they flower in profusion in the late summer. So this makes them a really decorative plant in their own right. The name Jerusalem artichoke is likely a corruption of the Italian for sunflower, girasole, which means turning to the sun. And the artichoke part, well, that's probably because they bear an uncanny resemblance in taste to the globe artichoke.
But also, okay, real quick, because I went down a rabbit hole when I came across this video. Let's see. Like, you can basically do so many different things to them. You can, like, roast them. You can, like, mash them. You can turn them into, like, a good, like, thickening agent for a soup. It's really, really good stuff. Let's see. Yeah, you can also make, like, a really good soup. Do they have a lot of carbs? I'm not sure about the carbs situation for sunchokes. They do have a lot of fiber, so they're known for giving people gas, but like, I don't know, most Americans need more fiber anyway. I'm trying to find a good image. Ah, yes. Yeah, just like look at how good this looks. Like that looks tasty as hell to me. Right there. Like a sunchoke puree, and then like, you know, putting in like some kind of cream, maybe like some butter and salt. It has like a similar texture to potato, but it also is like kind of nutty and rich. So like apparently you typically only want to like serve like small servings of it because it can actually be more dense than potato. But like, damn, that looks good. Yeah, one of the most important things to consider. Yeah, some nice puree. How to use it. Serve warm under scallops, shrimp, or seafood. Serve with braised meat to soak up the pan juices like mashed potatoes. Can be thinned with chicken stock to make a simple, rich soup. Puree pairs well with just about any meat. It can be used to season mashed potatoes too. Take the puree while it's warm, mix it into mashed potatoes instead of adding cream. And oh yeah, also like rosemary goes super good with it apparently. And like, I don't know, I just saw this and I was like, that looks sublime. That looks amazing. Like I want to grow these and then eat them. That seems really fun. Um, is the noble savage racist because it generalizes non-Western cultures? Yeah. Like it's kind of like the trope of like the magical N-word character in fiction. Like this idea that like black people are like Mary Poppinses that are gonna like come into white people's lives and like fix them with black people magic. Um, it's similar to that. The noble savage is aligned with that. Are your weights available tonight? No, this is my alternative streaming spot. What's your take on spirituality? My take is not super interesting. I'm interested in religious ideas quite a bit, but I don't feel like I have any particularly interesting insights into it. Like to me it's a whole it's a whole. It's a whole mystery box situation. We don't know what's inside. And the only way to know is to open it up, but then you aren't going to be able to communicate to anybody what it was. Additionally, like there are things in this world I cannot explain, but I am also extremely limited as a human being with a finite lifespan, and like I do not want to attribute to something I don't know the power of godhood. Does that make sense? Does that I feel like that makes sense to me. Additionally, I suppose if there is like a god in the kind of sense of like a Christian, you know, Abrahamic religion style god, like it would strike me as potentially being kind of an evil eldritch entity of some kind, you know? Like when you read a lot of the verses, and this might be kind of controversial. This is just kind of my take on it. Like I don't know. I think maybe like a God that is willing to kill billions of people or to order the genocide of different groups of people, or for another smaller example, like empower a prophet to summon bears to maul children to death for making fun of him for being bald. Like I don't I like that. To me suggests a level of malevolence. And I to me, like, on top of that, like the idea of it being like a human in the clouds, there's nothing to back that up, really. Like when you break down the theology, it lends itself much more to like there is an unknowable entity that were you to witness it, it would kill you outright, or at the very least shatter your mind. And like to me, that indicates some level of like eldritch monstrosity, you know? As a Christian, I agree, very eldritch coded. Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people like. That's something I believed more so, like even more so when I was like a Christian, and it's just kind of like I think a lot of people don't reckon with that element of you know Abrahamic religious belief often. I agree. I studied religion for my bachelor's, and the Abrahamic God is a monster. There's no evidence of it at all. Yeah, do you think anti-theism is a form of prejudice? No. I think like to a certain degree, like saying like, oh, you cannot believe these things, I think might rise to the level of prejudice for sure. But like in the sense of like I disagree that what I disagree with you and think that what you believe is not real, I don't think that that is prejudice. Does that make sense? Like the state persecuting a religion, prejudice. Someone disagreeing with a religion, not prejudice. Yeah, like I don't know. I think you can disagree with a religion and like even potentially like advocate that people deconvert, or not deconvert, but like convert to like a more agnostic or atheistic perspective without being like a prick about it. I think it's possible. But you know, eh. Yeah, Gnosticism is interesting, Maro Cat. I find it more aligned with like mythology in a lot of cases, in a way that I'm just like not terribly convinced by. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's potentially like some room for that question when it comes to like how do you de-radicalize people who are Christian nationalists, you know, who believe that it's their religion calls them to like overthrow the state. I think in that particular case that like there might be like some call for anti-theism, but like we're talking in like some pretty extreme scenarios. Fundamentalists of any religious persuasion are not a good look, we'll say. Let me put it this way, I am quite vehemently anti-fundamentalism in religion. I'm not necessarily anti-religion, if that makes sense. It's funny that we're having this discussion because, like, literally, like the other night, I was just exhausted and I couldn't sleep, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I turned on the movie Heretic. That is a phenomenal film about the nature of belief, and I would recommend it. Hugh Grant is creepy as fuck in that movie, and like I've never seen him be able to let go in that way, and it's so fun to watch. Hello, tipster. What a nice, calming movie to fall asleep to. Well, I fell asleep to the movie after that, which was Pretty Woman. What if all religions are correct at the same time? Ah, Cabin in the Woods, I see. Ever watched Dogma? No. Not a huge Kevin Smith guy. I don't like Kevin Smith movies particularly. Like, I tried Tusk, and Tusk is just not my jam. It's just not. I hate it. I hate it. So many of his movies just don't land for me. Aren't most normal people anti-fundamentalist? I think most normal people aren't necessarily able to identify a fundamentalist. What don't you like about Kevin Smith? I just don't like his movies. I actually find his like kind of like pot smoking, like pop culture enjoying podcast probably the more endearing part of his career. I heard like he did like a cult hostage movie that I heard was good. I haven't seen that one yet. Was it Red State? I wanted to say it was Red State. I wasn't sure if that was the name though. Have I seen the show Slow Horses? Nope. I've heard a lot of good things about Dogma. I've nothing against like trying new movies. I like it a lot. I like new movies. American atheists tend to mostly focus on Christianity and Islam, but they are overlooking other religions that are way less harmful, like Buddhism, Shintoism, Zoroastrianism, etc. Yeah, but like there's a reason for that, right? Like it's because Christianity is like the main thing that most American atheists interact with all the time. And in America, Christianity is the religious force that has been powering the conservative movement in this country for decades. Since the Southern strategy, it's been like almost half a century of the Southern strategy, which directly was mobilizing evangelical Christians into the conservative party. So it's like, yeah, American atheists tend to focus on where the power is kind of like concentrated in America. Also, yeah, less harmful maybe in an American context. In other contexts, potentially harmful. I'm sorry to hear that, John Smith. All right. Well, anyway, sunchokes are really cool, and I like them, and like, I don't know, he talks a little bit about these.
Blended into soups with that lovely rich depth of taste that they offer. You can also eat them raw, grated or cubed into salads. But if you want to reduce its wind-inducing impact still further, then try fermenting your tubers. Just slice up nicely clean tubers into thinnish slices like this, and then we're going to mix them with a little bit of chopped up salad onion and some garlic and ginger and some salt to create a kind of briny solution.
You know, I don't say this often, and it's a very high point of praise for me, but I feel like this man would be genuinely great friends with Paddington.
And then, because I like it a bit spicy, some chili flakes and of course the salt. Now this is a
Oh
little
my god, a British man who can actually use spice? Hell must have frozen over.
bit like a kimchi or perhaps a sauerkraut. So I'm just creating a kind of briny solution, and we'll be adding a little bit of water shortly, and that will naturally ferment then and naturally preserve it. And then just press it down a bit so it's nice and compact, and then fill it with water just so it's only just covered. This is now going to go indoors at room temperature in the dark to start fermenting. Now I'll need to burp it every now and then, just release some of the air like that in case it builds up and explodes. But once the bubbles have stopped at the
I've had them, salmon mousse. They're tasty. I just, you know, like you got to make them right.
sides here, which means fermentation is slowing down, this is safe and it can then go in the fridge where it should keep for
I just
at least
didn't
a
know
couple of
that I had
months.
had them at the time.
Good news, you can add Jerusalem to
Also, this is cool. Like, I know this is like an app that he's selling, but I like genuinely, this would be incredible if I had garden space to actually like plant stuff. Like you can basically run your garden like a goddamn Harvest Moon game.
any plan in the garden planner. And as you stretch
Look
it
at
out, it automatically calculates how many you need for the space you have.
That's cool as
And then,
hell.
the clever bit, when you go to the plant list, it will show you exactly when to plant and when you can expect to harvest your tubers, along with all the other crops on your plan. If you'd like to try out the garden planner for free, then just follow the link or the QR code.
Look, far be it from me to tell you guys to scan that QR code, but if you have a garden and you need to like help organize it, like go for it. You know, I showed you guys this guy's content, and I think he's really cool. So you might as well scan that QR code and help him out. All right. Looks like the garden from Cookie Clicker. Maybe. Do you plan on covering Doge destabilizing the U.S. seed bank? Not today. Beep boop. IRL Stardew, too hard. Have you heard of the general strike? No, tell me when it is. What day is it being planned for? If you say April 5th, I'm gonna be so upset. There's a website. Need 11 million before the date is set. Oh, that's something, I guess. I'm very skeptical of just kind of grassroots people signing up to do a general strike. I feel like a real general strike is what's... Nothing's wrong with April 5th. It's just that I'm sick of seeing people on TikTok being like, okay, everyone, time to do a general strike on April 5th, or like insert random day. And like, That's not how you put together a general strike. That's just not how that works. Like it takes massive coordination from like major labor unions and worker co-ops, and like we don't have that. The closest thing we have is gearing up for a 2028 general strike headed by like the UAW. Is there a term for someone who's conservative on social issues and leftist on economic issues? Yeah, piece of shit. Can we get a channel link? Absolutely. There you go. Please megaphone the strike. It's got to be as big as possible. It is LARP. If you are just saying we're all gonna do a general strike on March 10th, that is LARP. It is not real. I've seen this happen dozens of times in like the last several years. Like, the idea that people are going to do that because of a call to action on TikTok is not realistic. This is like people saying, okay, everyone, just don't buy anything on one day, and then we did the general strike. And like that's not that. Like, in order to have a general strike, you need to have the resources to maintain the strike. You need to have coordination between large, coordinated groups of people who will actually stand in solidarity. You need to organize with those groups. There needs to be time to like put all these people together and have them on the same page about how it's going to work. And like if we don't have that, and I don't see it yet until like 2028 potentially, but if we don't have that, then really what we have to fall back on is essentially people just organically being that pissed off. And like that's possible. I think, for example, if those Trump budget cuts go through, and like Medicaid gets slashed and Social Security goes down, like these are catalysts that could kick off a mass general strike. But like you're asking people to give up who live paycheck to paycheck. You're asking people to give up that paycheck that they require to live. So like the idea that it's like, oh, just we'll do one on a random day. It's not that simple. Believing it is that simple is a LARP. This is why unions have strike funds that they pay up and they build up over years so that they can go on strike, and that like someone's kid doesn't fucking die in the hospital because they don't have the money to pay the bills. These are the actual like stakes when we're talking about that. And like frankly, not taking that into account to me shows how deeply unserious an attempt is. Jimmy Hennessy, I don't know you from like random shit on the street. I don't know you. You're a stranger to me, and you're like, "Oh no, trust me, bro. We have everything sorted out. We've covered everything." And I just don't believe you. Present evidence. I'm sorry. I'm not here to jerk you off and tell you what a good chatter you are. Can I have a flyer passed out yesterday? Yeah, you can. Whisper it to a mod. Whisper a link to a mod. Get in there. Damn. This better be fucking convincing as shit.
April 5th is a big protest day. Anyone calling it a general strike might as well be a Fed trying to discredit the protests that day and undermine the concept of a general strike more broadly.
And yeah, I know April 5th is a big protest day. I just know that like sometimes people are like go hog wild and they're like, "Oh yes, it's a general strike. No one buy products from Amazon." It's like that's not what this is. Yeah, how about instead of linking a flyer, you tell me a website I can go to. How about that? Yeah, and like the thing is with stuff like this, sure. Like if people want to go and support generalstrikeus.com, like go for it. But like I would be very hesitant to provide all of this information personally. I would also say that like 311,000 isn't nothing. But we need exponentially more people to participate in this if we want to get it even remotely close to viable. And like that's fine. But also like there's a lot of work to do to reach that amount of people before it's more of like a thing, before it's more real, you know? Why would they ask for that info unless it's an RSVP? I would suggest looking into the history of the United States government torpedoing mobilization in organizations like this. Like that I would just say that. Hello, Ms. Milena. How you doing? Good night, John Smith. Y'all serious? Man, man, I you know, as someone who's like very aware of like the fate of like Fred Hampton, like I don't know, maybe like filling stuff out like this from an organization you've never heard of before is maybe like something you should consider. Y'all been to protests? Yeah. But there's a big difference between going to a protest and like handing an unknown group your information. Like I don't man. Do you just give your social security number out to anyone who asks? For fuck's sake. Read my other messages? Nah, I'm done. I'm done. I gave you enough time and you're just being completely worthless. Go do it someplace else. You've wasted my time, you've wasted the time of everyone else here. No. Like, I don't know, like, someone I didn't ask directly for strike info managed to drop that information in chat before you did. And instead, you're just bitching and moaning about, oh, do you guys even go to protests? I'm not interested in a virtue signal off. If you're interested in that, there are plenty of circles you can go to. This is not for that. Go fuck off. Fix your heart or die. Like, you know, like, Jesus Christ. I have no interest in people trying to come into this community to virtue signal about being like the most righteous leftist. I do not give a shit. Like, I cannot stress enough how little a shit I give about virtue signaling horseshit. Jesus. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just think the idea of actual serious action requires, you know, serious consideration. Like, if you are asking people to risk their livelihoods and by extension the lives and well-being of their family for a mass mobilization of a general strike, maybe you should be a bit more serious about it. You know, like maybe you should take the idea that you need like an established legal defense fund, the idea that you need like, you know, emergency payments for people who are, you know, in experiencing medical necessity or like hardship. Like I don't know, man. It's so frustrating. Hey, Godzilla Incarnate, thank you for the $5 super chat. Hi, Rilv, Jessica Denson, closely 21st century suffragist for you and every human who wishes to be a part. I'm not entirely sure what your donation message means, but I do like suffragettes. I think they're neat. Does the far right groom neurodivergent people against their own interests? I guess insofar as like the far right would rather kill neurodivergent people than like provide them any kind of assistance. Yes. Yeah, the Organization for a General Strike. You'd want the largest unions behind that. Like, I don't know. The closest thing we have that I am aware of to an actual viable general strike is going to be in 2028 because Sean Fain and the UAW have been going around and organizing with other unions in order to have 2028 being the year that unions negotiate for better contracts. Like having everyone negotiating that at the same time and enabling like mass potential mobilization in the in that case. Is it an anti-Trump strike? Genuinely no idea, Johnny Bravo. The person who was adamant about it in Twitch chat never put up or shut up. Beep boop. Wondering, how do we fundraise for 2028? Well, union members would be doing the fundraising, i.e., like part of their union dues go into strike funds, etc. You know. Where can I get info about this 2028 union strike? I mean, it's not like they're not saying in 2028 we're gonna have a general strike, but they are saying like, oh, Sean Fain. Yeah, I mean, here's a good article about it from The Guardian. We want everyone walking out. UAW chief outlines mass strike for May 2028. So it would not be a general strike, but it would be maybe potentially the largest strike in U.S. history. Why do you say beep boop? Probably because I have ADHD. I have not been tested for it, but it's like a verbal tick. And it's just kind of fun to say. It's satisfying. Try it. Try it. It's fun. Dumb question, but why plan a strike that far into the future? Aren't strikes meant to protest something happening currently or in the near future? Well, it's a mass strike because building up union power across sectors allows for more coordinated striking action to allow workers better pay, better negotiating power, etc. A good example of this is in I forget if it was Sweden. I think it was Sweden. You know, Elon Musk was trying to do some shitty stuff with their Tesla workers in Sweden, and I believe dock workers and like transportation unions refused to like move Tesla merchandise because basically like that's the power. If you have multiple groups across sectors organized together and you're all negotiating your contracts at the same time, you have more negotiating power because they know, hey, if you strike, those other groups and other unions are going to support the strike as well. Yep. So the reason it's important to have all of these union contracts expiring at the same time is because then, out of necessity, due to like the timing of all of those contracts expiring and needing to be renegotiated, all the unions are going to be on the same page at the same time due to like their material circumstances. My question is, why strike that far into the future? Because when we're talking about a strike on the scale necessary for some of these large firms, you need to plan that far in advance. Because it's like when you're talking about fights on the scale that they are potentially eyeing, like you do not have an infinite amount of resources. Like you're talking about fighting a company that has tens of billions, if not a war chest of trillions, you know? And so you need to have that solidarity, and you need to have time to build up that solidarity and the war chest in order to fight that.